All right, welcome everyone to the February 21st Board of Supervisors meeting. I call the meeting to order and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a couple of announcements tonight. There are open positions on the Municipal Authority, Park and Recreation Board, Zoning Hearing Board, Library Foundation Board, and Park and Recreation Foundation Board. If you're interested in volunteering, please send a letter of interest and a brief resume to the Township. Property owners who received an annual stormwater inspection report notice are reminded to submit them on or before April 1st. Reports can be emailed to stormwaterinspections@tredyffrin.org. And finally, there will be a joint public meeting with Easttown Township to discuss fire and EMS matters on March 8th at 7 p.m. in Keene Hall. We move to the approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 17th, 2023 public meeting? Sorry.
So moved. A second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right. We move to township business, and the board met prior to this meeting to discuss legal matters. Now we have supervisor liaison reports, and we will start with Supervisor Miller.
The zoning hearing board will meet this Thursday night at 7 p.m. in this room, and Sharon filled in for me last month.
Okay. The zoning hearing board last met on January 26, 2023 at 7 p.m. Right here in Keene Hall. It was a full house where every seat was taken. It appears that most of the people were there regarding TESD, regarding a motion for relief, special exception regarding Conestoga High School. And it had to do with several things. A lot had to do with turf fields, the lights, putting in grass fields, storage, and roadway. A lot had to do with the steep slope percentage, that they wanted differences with that. They wanted extra parking space, or I think relief from extra parking spaces. For the front yard parking, there was 0 feet buffer where 25 square feet is required. And CHS was told that they must work with the township engineer regarding stormwater maintenance. They agreed to no lighting for softball and the soccer fields between 9 p.m. and 7:30 a.m. In section 2 of the request, they requested to be granted to exceed the maximum impervious coverage, and that motion carried 2-1. So they also announced that Neil Kling and Tara LaFiora would not be returning to serve on the zoning hearing board. And so there was openings that were created. Dan McLaughlin was reappointed as the chair. Julia Peck was appointed as the vice chair. And Una Turner Burke and, sorry, I can't read my own handwriting for the last, but they were appointed as solicitor for the zoning hearing board. Then the next appeal had to do with TESD, again regarding Hillside Elementary School, which was seeking a variance request to exceed the maximum impervious coverage. This has to do with a playground that they're putting in there. There was testimony from civil engineer Mike Kissinger of Pannoni and Associates. Several residents who live by the school attended the meeting and did speak up. One was the PTO president of Hillside Elementary, who said they really want the new playground. Next was Bob Squitieri of Cloverly Road, who lives right across the street from the elementary school, who asked if the playground surface was natural or synthetic rubber. The answer was that it's synthetic. He asked the lifespan. The answer was it's unknown, at least 10 years. And Mr. Squitieri said he opposed the rubber because there's all kinds of cancer-causing and other toxic substances in it. He was worried about the ecological effects, and it was answered that at least as far as maintenance, it can be resealed, it's under warranty, but I don't think that satisfied Mr. Squitieri at all. Next up was resident Ann Keck, who also lives on Cloverly Road across from the elementary school. She presently works for the Attorney General's office and has worked for other law firms in PI cases, and has lived across the street from the school for 26 years. She attested to historic flooding in the area and was concerned about the synthetic material and potential negative effects of it on the kids and the environment. She asked why must this material rather than natural materials be used, and all of this was taken into consideration. Zoning Hearing Board will render its decision on Thursday, February 23rd. Next up was Grogan Investment Properties regarding 1447 Nob Hill Lane. It's zoned R1 residential, and they were seeking a special exception to height requirements for a new home to be built on the property. Tredyffrin Township requested to be recognized as a party, and Pat McKenna as the township's representative. And this space, if you look on a map, it's actually easy to find, but it is by the Pico Electric Facility. It's behind the old Trenton Railroad line. It is off North Valley Road, south of Jennings Way, and curves down the road and all the way down to a cul-de-sac. So it's a new family home that would be built there. I guess I should say the plan was denied by the township zoning officer because of the height and what these statutes provide. So Nob Hill Lane does have a HOA, and they provided that there were no architecture restrictions. The builder said that they shared plans with the HOA as a courtesy, but no objections to the property being built by the builder, Bentley Homes. So one woman, Yvette Hope, who lives on Nob Hill Lane, asked whether the owner will pay their HOA dues. The answer was absolutely. Heather Guerin, who lives on Kate's Glen in Paoli, which is directly north of this site. It's not on the same road, but geographically it's directly north. And she is opposed to their backyard lights and their high deck that will interfere with her family's enjoyment of the night sky and the night environment, because the higher roof looks like a 3-story from her home and shines the lights directly at her home. So the applicant agreed to shield the backyard lights so they don't interfere, so that was a good result. And they otherwise, I guess, didn't make a decision yet on this height, so we'll hear about that on Thursday. Next up was an appeal of 1340 Investment LLC in the O Office District seeking a special exception to use the property as a self-storage facility. This is over at the location that used to be the Sims or the Devon workout facility. They said they will do no new land development, so they're not going to change anything other than the existing footprint. They're not going to do any expansion. The sports facility will be converted to a self-storage, which is a permitted use by special exception, and would include storage units for boats and RVs, etc. Robin Drucker asked whether it would have semi-truck parking, and the answer was no. There's also a question whether it has adequate lighting in the parking lot relative to the winter months when it gets dark by 4 p.m. And they stated that there would be 500 storage units, no requirement to sign in at the office first, and the height limit is 45 feet, 8 inches for what they might put in there. But again, they did reassure everybody over and over that they're not expanding the footprint, that they would not allow semi-trucks or other big trucks to be parked right out in the open there, which I think was a relief to the people who live in Dalesford, but they still had concerns because their homes are kind of raised up in Dalesford and they can see straight across the trail into this area, and they wanted to make sure that it would not become a nuisance. So there were lots of hands up for audience questions. One was Joe Catuzzi, who lives at Dalesford Lake. They're in the condo association requesting party status. He was concerned about the electrical tower closest to the trail behind there, and asked if the developers will comply with Tredyffrin Township's noise differences, which the answer was yes. They had questions regarding lighting shields being pointed down so that the lights wouldn't shine directly at their homes. They asked for plantings of 6 arborvitae plants to help shield the facility, and the applicant agreed to it, as well as screening of the areas where boats and RV parking might be. Another resident, Amy Anderson of Dalesford Boulevard, a longtime resident in fact, was concerned about sound abatement within the facility. They said nothing will be heard from the facility. It will be quiet. They asked about loading docks. They were told yes, there'll be kind of these loading areas for people to get their stuff inside, but they're not actually docks. It's just going in the side doors. It's not a 24-hour facility. They were worried about lots of trash between the building and the Chester Valley Trail. The applicant agreed to clean that up, even though I'm sure they're not the ones who put all the trash there. It's the trail users who do that. And they said they will call trash removal company anytime there's dumping that occurs there to better satisfy the residents that this won't become a nuisance. There was another appeal or application. Mark Melihick and his wife of Walnut Lane, they're in an R1 district. They were seeking a variance to exceed maximum building coverage of 20% to 30.1, where 26.7 exists, to create a room for a mother-in-law suite to move in. All their neighbors adjacent were not opposed, although one area neighbor who previously agreed to it changed their aye to a nay. There were no other questions or comments from the audience, and that is under consideration. And again, we'll find out their result on Thursday. This was a really long meeting, I'll tell you. We were there till like 11. Next was another appeal of CBCC acquisitions for in Chesterbrook O Office District, seeking a variance to exceed maximum impervious coverage of 45% to go up to 57.5%, where presently 49.7 is existing. The Zoning Hearing Board Chair gave them opportunity to continue their matter to the February 23rd meeting, and that's because at this point it was really almost 11 o'clock at night. And, 10:30 I wrote here. And they said no, because they'd already sat there through the whole thing, so they were gonna just see it to the end and everybody wouldn't have to come back. So that was taken under consideration and will be decided at the Thursday meeting. There were no questions or comments from the audience on that. And the meeting adjourned at 10:55 p.m. Okay. That ends my zoning, my zoning hearing board report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wysocki.
Yeah, good evening. I've had the pleasure of going to 3 meetings, and I have 3 meetings to report on. First is the Pension Trustees report. Pension Trustees met on February 8 for their quarterly review of the Police Pension Fund, the 457 Plan for Non-Uniformed Employees, and the OPEB Trust, that's Other Post-Employment Benefits. After examining last quarter 2022 performance data, current data, and future economic and market projections, the trustees concluded that no significant changes in investment strategy were now needed. The next meeting of the pension trustees is on May 10th. My next report covers the Planning Commission, which met on January 19th. Its first action was the election of officers. Chair, Scott Growney was elected chair, David Thomas was elected vice chair, and several other members were elected to liaison posts. Tori Snyder for our Board of Supervisors Ordinance Development Committee, and Kate Vaccaro for the EAC. The Planning Commission then voted to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the adoption of the 2022 Subdivision and Land Development Activities Report as required by the Municipalities Planning Code, and that's on the agenda tonight. In its last item of business at that meeting, the PC confirmed its approval of the consolidation of 5 lots at the following locations: 4 West Golf Club Lane, 14 Leopard Road, 10 Leopard Road, and lot number 439M204 also in that area. Those 5 lots were consolidated into 2 separate lots, one containing an office building and parking areas, and other containing existing single-family detached dwelling. The proposed subdivision/lot consolidation will create separate lots for the office and residential buildings as envisioned in the conditional use and land development approvals granted in April 1983, but not recorded at that time, and will eliminate many of the current non-conforming conditions of the property. The proposed subdivision lot consolidation does not involve any land development, and there are no improvements proposed at this time. The Planning Commission also approved the applicant's petition for a zoning map amendment eliminating split zoning of the office building lot by placing the office building and parking areas on one lot in the C1 district and leaving the existing dwelling and related improvements on a separate lot in the R2 district. The Planning Commission recommended the lot consolidation/subdivision and the zoning map amendment to the BOS for approval, and there's, I believe, some sort of action on that tonight, especially the ordinance, I believe, for advertisement, if I'm not mistaken. And lastly, the Environmental Advisory Council met on January 24. Agenda was long. I'll just note a few highlights. First, the election of officers for 2023. Amber Atwood Levy is continuing as chair. Edward Duenas is vice chair. Jennifer Cox is the secretary, and a number of folks were appointed liaisons to other boards and commissions. Some of the highlights included first their Martin Luther King Day cleanup at Wilson Farm Park. Smashing success, more than 80 volunteers, participation by the Conestoga basketball and varsity basketball team and JV basketball team, who I believe participated, and New Eagle students and other community residents. So it was a great success. 20 bags of trash picked up, really wonderful. And it was a great way to start the year. Secondly, this was a highlight in the sense that the EAC heard a presentation on the expansion by some group, the expansion of the disc golf area from 4 to 9 holes, and roundly turned that down because it would have the deleterious effects on the trees, bushes, bird habitat, and they just did not approve it, and they couldn't move it along. So that was, I put that in the highlight category because it was a fairly long and detailed discussion. Next, the EAC heard from the Historical Commission, which spoke about its many activities. The commission was represented by Rob Williams, chair, and Ernie Falcone, member, who's liaison to the EAC. They look for synergies between the Historical Commission and the EAC. One area, they discussed a number of things, but one area was apparently the TE Historical Society has a list of trees that are considered to be of historical note, and the Historical Commission and the EAC decided to look into that further, and also to look into other heritage tree locations. Clean energy. Clean energy. There was, in response to residents, we're at some point, we got a lot on our list right now, but at some point maybe looking into adding a zoning requirement or some requirement at some level, no pun intended, for level 2 charging stations at new apartment complexes, parking lots, etc. This is in early days, early stages. Stay tuned, but not tomorrow. Recycling and waste management. This was, to me, the big highlight. On March 19, the single-use plastic ordinance will go into effect. That's huge. It will limit the use, and I could use the tougher word, but it will limit the use of plastic bags, plastic straws, and polystyrene or styrofoam containers. And at that meeting, the assembling of packages to go to retailers was discussed. Tracy Viola, who is, I believe, an associate member of the EAC, was a leader in getting the passage of the single-use plastic ordinance, and she was also putting together the package to go to retailers, which contains signs, other information, letters, pamphlets, and kudos and many thanks go to our staff, Gabrielle Ignari, who helped put the single-use plastic ordinance on our website, and also was instrumental in the mailing and preparing the packages, as was Pat Hoffman, who is sitting to my right here, helped put all of that together to get it out and get it in the hands of the retailers, so they had what they could do to get this out to their customers. So those are some of the highlights. There were other things that some folks Open Lands Conservancy, one last thing. Open Land Conservancy wants to partner with the EAC and come up with a speaker series of sorts, but that's still in its early days. But that is a highlight, bringing environmentally conscious organizations together to do good things. So yes, it was a long meeting, but a productive meeting. So that ends my reports for tonight.
Thank you. And Supervisor Humble realizes she has one more report.
Thank you, Chair Gussie. I hadn't given my report for Parks and Rec, which the board met on February 8th at 7 p.m. I'll be brief here because the other one was so long. We got a report that there were 2 more sessions left for Winter Rec. That was on February 8th, so I think it's over and finished by now. Registration reminders were sent for off-leash dog park use. That's at Tea Garden Park. Everybody who uses it is required to buy their dog tag every year. Additionally, interviewing for the summer day camp counselors has already started. The Township had met with the Boy Scout who was going to put in the bat box over at Stratford Park, and the location is approved and the boxes are already up. Under new business, we considered the offer of a gift of a peace pole, which the Baha'i community is offering one to be put up in Wilson Farm Park. It's something that we hadn't seen in this area, but on a trip she had seen it and liked it, and apparently they're a big deal up in New England. It's just a pole that goes up and says peace in several different languages. So they offered to pay for that, and the board was very receptive and approved for that. Next up was Natalie Guerin, who is an 8th grader at Valley Forge Middle School. She's working on her Girl Scout Silver Award project, and she wanted to build a little free library, and the board approved it unanimously to go up in Friendship Park. She was really excited about it, so I think that will be a nice addition to Friendship Park. Next thing, there was a consideration for the addition of outfield fencing at Tea Garden 4 baseball field by the Devon Stratford Little League. They asked that ball field be fully fenced because with the different dogs running on it all the time, it's got lots of holes in it from digging. It's very pitted. There's lots of dog poop left on it all the time. I mean, that's the reality is, with the off-leash dogs, a lot of people don't clean up after their dogs at Tea Garden Park. And they need to keep this clean and safe for the kids. So they wanted to fence it. They offered to pay for all of the fencing. The board was excited that they're offering to pay for all of it and approved it, as they definitely showed need and the ability. The one thing, there's a key issue, is what PICO would say about or approve having a fence installed under the power lines. PICO is always very picky about what gets put under those power lines at Tea Garden Park. And if the audience or anybody watching remembers, that's the reason why ultimately the township could not put a comfort station in Tea Garden Park, even though it's the second most used park in the township behind Wilson Farm Park, and there's a great need there. PICO said no. There was consideration for a storage box and temporary fencing at Mill Road Park by the TE Thunder, which is a girls' team, travel softball team. They're planning to rent fields at the park 5 days a week for 2 hours at a time. They do know that flooding is an issue there at Mill Road Park. And they were, of course, offering to pay for their own storage box and temporary fencing. Next, the EAC made a presentation to the group about shade tree planting. Ann Murphy was there, and they want to plant these in April on Earth Day. I know I had a question for Ann about one of the trees that they wanted to plant, which was the hackberry, and immediately after our board meeting, Ann, I'll tell you, I went home and I researched it and looked it up, and I was very impressed with it. So I think the trees that we have here in Pennsylvania are different from the ones I'm familiar with out in Texas, but I was really surprised about how much these trees support the wildlife, and including the birds, the deer, everything. It's like they're one of the most useful trees that we can plant around here. So Ann had provided us with a map showing in Wilson Park where they wanted the trees to be planted, and it looks good to us, and the board approved that. So after that, that was all we had. So I'll cut it short, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Freed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Historical Commission met on February 9th, 2023. They will meet again on March 9th, 2023. Given that we have the Chairman of the Historical Commission here tonight with a number of the members who are going to be giving a report of what they've done this year as well as their vision for the future, I'm going to end my comments there.
Supervisor Basker.
Thank you, Dr. Gussie. So first, I would like to thank Supervisor Wysocki for filling in for me at the EAC. I was out on medical leave that day. The Library Board of Trustees met on Thursday, January 26th, and a summary of the items from that meeting. Marianne Hooper is now the Community Outreach and Adult Program Librarian at the Tredyffrin Public Libraries. She has been with the library part-time for over 10 years and brings a wealth of experience, so we're happy to have her. There is a continued turnover of staff, and the public libraries would like to increase the hours, but basically they're hiring to fill part-time and they need the staff to increase the hours. The Friends of Tredyffrin Public Library have offered to redo the staff lounge, and we thank the Friends of TPL, and they're basically working with the staffs to think about what they would like. The head of reference and technology is working on a plan to reconfigure the floor space between the circulation desk and the teen area. In terms of attendance, there's been an over 70% increase in attendance, in-person attendance, in 2022 versus 2021, although the numbers are still below the pre-pandemic levels. Circulation has also increased in 2022, though it too remains below pre-pandemic levels. E-material circulation, on the other hand, continues to grow year after year, and in 2022 was almost 98,000 checkouts in 2022, which is about 28% of the total circulation. And then 2022 programming remained kind of thin because of staffing shortages. Now for the golfers out there, the 2023 Golf Classic is Monday, October 2nd at St. David's Golf Club, so please mark your calendars, and it would also be a great opportunity to celebrate Mahatma Gandhi's birthday because it happens to be on the same day. The next meeting of the Library Board of Trustees is this week on Thursday, February 23rd at 7:30 at the Stratford Library, and you can attend in person as well as virtually through video conference. Moving on to the Planning Commission that met on Thursday, February 16th, and the Planning Commission was asked for their concerns regarding a proposal for 656 and 676 Sweetsford Road at the southwest corner of Sweetsford Road and Old Eagle School Road. And basically right now there are a couple of office buildings out there, and they would like to use some of the parking space to put in a convenience store, kind of think like a Wawa with some fuel pumps. And so I'm basically going to summarize some of so they were not there for a decision, they were just there to ask the Planning Commission for their concerns and to get public input. So I will just summarize those. So one of the biggest concerns was the adequacy of parking, since the new establishment would result in fewer parking spots for the office building. So the applicant's position was that with the shift to hybrid working, there were fewer employees in offices. And furthermore, that the pre-pandemic data showed that, even the pre-pandemic data showed that the reduced number of spaces would suffice. Also, there was a lot of discussion about that as to whether the hybrid working was going to continue. There was concern about traffic circulation, especially left turns from the property onto Sweetsford Road going westbound, and then onto Old Eagle School Road going northbound. And the latter, that is going from onto Old Eagle School Road northbound, the plan is to not permit that at commute times, busy times. And there was discussion and concern about the enforceability of that left turn. You know, someone might just say, hey, I'm going to make a left turn and make that left turn anyway. And for the former, which is the left turn onto Sweetsford Road, there were concerns about the adequacy of, if there's backed up traffic, about the adequacy of space within the property for cars wanting to turn left, as well as on the left turn lane, the lane between the left turn lanes between the driving lanes where cars might go into that and then wait for a break in the traffic. There was also a difference of opinion between a member of the public and the applicant as to whether PennDOT regulations permitted driveways from office buildings within 800 feet of a traffic signal. And this went back and forth a few times, but the applicant basically argued that they were not making any new driveways. This is just the existing driveway, and so PennDOT couldn't possibly object to that. There was also concern from the public about the change in the nature of the neighborhood. Right now it's office buildings, and they're used during office hours on weekdays mostly, and putting in a convenience store with a gas station would essentially convert it from that to a 24/7 type operation and change the nature of the neighborhood and the traffic patterns. So that was a summary of the discussion. The next meeting of the Planning Commission will be on Tuesday, March 16th at 7 p.m. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Dr. Gussie.
Dr. Gussie, I'd like to say one thing. I want to thank Supervisor Basker, who kindly attended that February 16 Planning Commission meeting in my absence since I couldn't be there. So I just wanted to acknowledge him. Thanks, Basker.
All right, thanks everyone. And I just wanted to give a brief update from our ordinance subcommittee. One of the things we were recently tasked with during the public hearing regarding short-term rentals in historic properties was to consider additional provisions for properties with shared driveways. After discussing with the committee, we determined that in order for these short-term rentals to be allowed, they still must go through the special exception process from the zoning hearing board. So the committee agreed that during this process, if an adjacent neighbor with a shared driveway has an issue, this would be an appropriate avenue to require a condition specific to that property. Therefore, the subcommittee agreed that there was no need to modify the ordinance. The subcommittee is still finalizing the woodland ordinance, and that is the major focus of the group right now. And we expect that will be moving to the public for next steps soon. So keep your eyes out for that. And we will move on to the Historical Commission report. Come on up, Rob Williams.
Thank you for inviting us at the Historic Commission to give you a review of what happened in 2022 and highlights for what we'll be focused on for 2023. I do want to acknowledge I have some great volunteer commissioners on my team tonight. Ernie Falcone, Pearl Nudie in attendance, also Allison Andrell, Beth Specker, and Mark Dixon, and they've been doing a lot of work this past year. So what I'll do tonight is I'll cover the mission of our commission, the work from the past year, and our look forward. Here, like many of our fellow boards, we were active at the Community Day at the end of the last year, informing our residents about the neighborhoods, the areas of historic value in the township. So just as a reminder, our mission comes right out of the Township Code. We have two missions. One is to advise the supervisors on best ways to protect our historic resources. That term includes buildings, structures, ruins. From my days with Steve Burgo, includes bridges, includes cemeteries. There's a lot of historic value scattered throughout the township. Some of it's fairly well hidden, and it's our job to make sure that each site is at least understood, and those that have the highest value, we try to do work on preservation. The second is to educate all of us, the public, the residents, businesses, as far as understanding our township. We have a 300-year-old history. I'm going to be talking about another event coming up, 250th. I'll be mentioning at the end of the presentation. Regarding our accomplishments, first and foremost, we've been successful in securing a grant from the state, from the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission. They are what's called the State Historic Preservation Office. They get the funds that flow down from the federal government and distribute it to the municipalities. Tredyffrin is in a very unique situation. We are designated as what's called a certified local government by the state, which means we've been doing great works in the past on preserving our historic sites. We are one of only 50 municipalities in the state out of more than 2,500 that have this designation. So it's kind of a precious thing to have, and it's our intent to retain it by updating our works. This grant is specifically aligned with the first step in the 2021-2030 comprehensive plan, which is to update our planning documents. We did get $10,000 from the state. The township was put in a cost match of $7,500 for a total project value of $17,500. The intent of, I'll share later what the work of the grant will do. That will be executed in 2023. As far as the Village Walk, that was a big success. This is the first time the township has hosted the Chester County Walk in more than a decade. Chester County has asked its municipalities to host walks and village tours. We took on the challenge this year, and because we're a small group, we allied with many other institutions that have historic connections. First and foremost, the Chester County Planning Commission, which hosts these events, our two nonprofits, the Tredyffrin Easttown Historical Society and the Tredyffrin Historic Preservation Trust. And then we partnered with a few new partners, the Valley Forge Park Alliance, the Dupertai House, and interestingly, mentioning bridges, one of our two historic bridges left in the township strides Valley Creek, and so we had PennDOT and some of their experts come from Harrisburg to talk. 100 visitors, 35 volunteers. For the supervisors who were brave enough to come out that day, they know there was a bit of rain at the beginning and rain at the end, but we snuck it in between. It was very successful. We had a mix of residents from Tredyffrin and others from across the county. We too had a wonderful experience with our interns. We had two interns from Conestoga. Many of you know that they have a senior project, and we were lucky to get two very capable seniors who had talents we didn't realize when we first met them. So Matt Palo, Nicholas Rendier, boy, were they busy. This is 1 month of work, 6 hours a day. First, they helped us identify properties that are on the National Register. We have 13 properties on the National Register of Historic Places. They did the research, brought that up to date for us. They were photographers, videographers. We got some updated pictures. Matt did some research on the cabin that resides on the high school property. And then finally, they helped us with the walk. We'll have interns again this year. If you have any students who are interested in working with us, please advise them. And then finally, this is my job, to get the Historic Commission in solid ground with working as a well-performing organization. So just getting our publicity, we started a Facebook page. We have now been publishing in the newsletter every edition. The most recent edition has the kind of articles you'll see more often, which is about unique properties. In this case, the little filling station on Lancaster Avenue, which now is hosting a small garden shop. We have liaisons to most of the other commissions and boards. And finally, an important part of our work is being trained to get up to date on the information we need to be understanding our roles, understanding the most recent best practices. And so we, through the Township, we have funding to pay for 2 organization memberships, one at the national level and then the Chester County Preservation Network. We're very active in both. Looking forward, what we decided is we really need to rally around some targeted projects, and we came up with the term, learn your land, love your place. I think what we've seen over the past years, especially since I've been serving, is there's a general knowledge of Tredyffrin had a place in history. We know of unique locations. We may not know much about those locations and what they served. And so the theme for this year for our work is going to be learn more about the 19 square miles of our township, learn the history of it, and then love the places you are at. And what that means is neighborhoods, and for those who actually own historic homes, love those homes, and we're here to help. This, in fact, is one of those hidden homes in the Tredyffrin neighborhood. So as far as going back to that grant, we tonight, hopefully, will pass, or you all will pass the approval for releasing a request for proposal to hire a consultant. We have not had a consultant helping us since 2009, when the last preservation plan was adopted. We are going to have what I view as we're going to piggyback off what the comprehensive plan had, which is a steering committee to include supervisors, the planning commission, which is also important in this work. Aaron will be working with us on this, as well as Robert Emanuel from the staff, and then of course our historic commission. The deliverable is basically a playbook of all the options that we will have for future consideration. There are many, many best practices that we need to learn about. Some of our neighboring townships, others in the state are well along in preserving their properties in unique ways, both through municipal governance, but also private and public-private initiatives. That's what we're going to learn from this work, and this will prepare us for next year for ordinance update. As far as learning the land, we're going to do 2 things. One is we have heard from the public that, quotes like, nothing happened important in my house. And what that means to me is that there's a lack of knowledge of exactly what our buildings served over the 100 years, 200 years, and we have buildings in our township from 1730s, 1750s. So one of the things is to do some theme work, and this is a new best practice. I would say many municipalities and cities are using this now, so that you know the stories of why buildings that are still existing are important to that legacy. So we'll be working on that, and then on the right, we'll take that information, we're going to turn it into what's called story maps, which is a fairly new method using our GIS system, our Geographic Information System in the township, and basically bringing those stories online. They'll be available, through the portals and mobile apps. So we'll be investigating this as well. So that's learn the land. Again, appreciation of the breadth of our township and its histories. Then narrowing down to love your place, there's two themes here. One is neighborhood, one is homes. So the neighborhood was the idea that we'll have walks, and the inspiration for this is things like what the EAC does. They do a pickup of garbage, they rally people together. You just heard a great report about how the last Wilson Park Farm pickup was great. These will be walks in neighborhoods to identify, find those spots, either bicycling or walking. That map on the left is a map of Tredyffrin, 78 contemporary homes, but that little blue box in the center is the 1848 homestead for what that property was, which was a tree nursery for more than 100 years. And yet that home is still standing, well cared for by its owner, and yet is almost hidden from the road. On the right, those who own homes, we intend to help them. We have 6 cabins remaining from the 1700s in the township. And if you think about where you're going to find a contractor to help you with the chinking between the logs, that's probably not something you're going to find in the Yellow Pages. So this is the kind of work that we can help identify those who can, help us with this kind of work. I myself have a steam system in my house. It was very hard to figure out who actually knows residential steam. And then on the left there is a picture of a counterweighted window sash. So that happens to be my house, historic house. I have, for every window in my house, I have 4 8-pound lead weights being able to counterbalance the weight of the window sash. Who knows how to fix these? So these are the kind of things we can help our neighbors with. And then finally, to get ready for 2027. It seems like it was yesterday that we were celebrating the bicentennial, but the 250th anniversary of our country is coming in 2026. For our township, the big date's in 2027, when we had both the British Army and the American armies marching through and encamping in our township, the British for 3 nights. We all know the Americans were here for about 5 months. This is a picture of the Daughters of the American Revolution, who have already recognized Tredyffrin and the 250th by placing a new marker last month over at Old Eagle School Cemetery. So the word's out, and we will be working with our partners in the nonprofits, other parts of the township government to get ready for some celebration. Don't know what that is yet, but that work is coming. We had, I will say, our only challenge that resulted last year was we lost 3 of our members unexpectedly. 2 moved out of the township in July. A 3rd resigned in December. They happen to have tremendous capabilities in planning and law, real estate law specifically. We're very fortunate to have 2 new people join us, but we will be asking for an associate membership in order to expand our ranks. We need people to come on board and get them schooled up before they become full members, and we need a place where our retiring members can step down and still, offer their know-how and services. So you'll be seeing that from us soon. So we look for the board to support us with this preservation plan. You'll be getting updates, approve the associate membership. We will be seeking grants for 2024, which means we'll be doing the work this year, and then finally this plan for the 250th. So we hope all of you will join us to learn the land and love our places. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The Historical Commission's doing great work, and I'm glad the public has the chance to hear this overview of your accomplishments and goals. And I just want to say I love the phrase, learn your land, love your place. I think that's really nice. Do we have any board questions or comments?
Madam Chair, just briefly, I want to thank Rob for the tremendous work he's been doing in the whole commission. I think you can see from the presentation here that they put a tremendous amount of work in. They've sort of modeled themselves, I think, if it's fair to say, after the EAC, which has done a really nice job. And so and I think, since Rob has become chair and really put a plan together, it's really taken off, and I think that they are achieving those goals of really raising the view of the commission and doing a lot of good work. So thank you.
Any other board questions or comments?
Yes, I wanted to say thank you to Rob for this outstanding presentation. I never cease to be amazed by your knowledge of this area. You're definitely a gem here in Tredyffrin Township yourself, so thank you very much for all the work you've done with Historic Commission and that you will continue to do.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, Rob, I really appreciate the passion you bring to what is a very, very important thing for the community. I mean, the history in our township is one of the things that makes it a special place to move to. And, we live here, we sort of see it all the time. I live right down the street from the Duperdye house and drive past it, like, oh yeah, it's there. But when you have visitors come, it's really, they're like, oh my God, really, that's there? And that is what makes it a special place. And so we appreciate bringing it out to people, and working on preserving it for the future is really valuable. So we appreciate your enthusiasm and excited to work with you.
All right, any final comments? Any public comment? All right, we will move on to the engineering capital projects update. Mr. Burgo.
Thank you, Chairman, Madam Chair Gussie, and members of the board. This evening, I just want to give a quick update on where we stand with the Pugh Road culvert replacement project. As many of the residents in the community are familiar, this road's been closed since Tropical Storm Ida from damages that were received. The last update we had back in November, we had started construction, and we have done a lot of work since, and we're actually on the home stretch of trying to wrap this project up. So the culvert was delivered back in November, right before our last meeting. That was installed over a 3-day process. Since then, we've had a lot of concrete work for the entrance and exit walls, which you can see a little bit in this picture here, as well as the large retaining wall along the stream and edge of road. Those were all completed at the end of December, and in January, we've been placing stone riprap protection to help us along the upstream and downstream areas to protect with erosion in the future, and working a lot right now on the restoration process, working on the roadway itself, bringing the roadway back up to grade, working with the new retaining wall, the retaining wall backfill, guide rail, and then we'll be working on site restoration coming up in the future. Just a couple of pictures. Right before Christmas and before the holidays, we were able to take the temporary stream crossing driveway that provided access to 3 of the properties off of the driveway next to the project. We were able to switch that driveway back to their original configuration, and they've been using that since that time frame. We also poured a concrete slab over top of the culvert that was installed. Work on the retaining wall was a big piece. So there was an old stone wall that was next to the creek, next to the roadway. It had been overtopped several times. It was cracked and falling apart into the creek. We put a new reinforced concrete wall. This wall, we were just talking about historical things with Mr. Williams. We will see some history here because this wall should last well after we're long and gone. So there was a lot of steel reinforcement in this wall. It was built to current standards, and it should be lasting long into the future to protect. We poured the wall in February, and then basically did some additional work behind the wall underneath the roadway. We had another section of sanitary sewer line that we concrete encased. Did backfill of that wall, and this is a good picture here from the residence driveway looking over towards 167 Pugh Road, the newly constructed house on the other side of the road of our project. You can see the brand new concrete retaining wall along the creek. You can see the entrance to the culvert. It's one single opening now. It's going to function a lot better. We should see a lot less clogging with debris that comes down the stream channel in the future, which was a big problem. Stream channel, we took the coffer dam out in late January, and we reopened up the stream to flow. And the downstream area is currently being worked on. It's one singular opening with a drop, and we have a nice riprap stilling bay area. So we have large rock. This rock is 40-some inches in diameter, so we will not expect to see any of this stuff moving downstream in the future. Currently, they're working on the new guide rail that will be put in along the edge of the roadway. They were grading, and we started doing some of the base paving. That will be finished in late March, early April, and then we do expect down the road, we will be finishing up in April with a meeting our intended time frame for a May 1st opening of the roadway. So if anybody has any questions, we can certainly answer them, but we are a little bit ahead of schedule right now, and we hope to open the bridge as soon as we can.
Thanks so much for this update and all your hard work. It's exciting that the end is finally going to be in sight. I don't know what I'll do with the extra 5 minutes on my way to New Eagle to and from. But thank you for the update. I think it's really important for the public to hear these updates. Do we have any comments or questions from the board?
I just want to say that, this is quite a major project and involved a lot of moving pieces, so nice work and thank you.
One other quick thing just to add to this, the one nice thing we've done as we've been going through this process, we have also worked with FEMA since the tropical storm Ida. We actually are going to be getting money back from FEMA that will help offset some of the cost of this project as well, so that will be helpful.
I had one other thing I just want to mention, Steve hasn't mentioned, but I want to congratulate you on being awarded the Professional Award from the College of Engineering Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Villanova University. So congratulations for that award. I think you're going to have a dinner on, the 30th of March to receive it. So thanks. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also have a question. Sorry, I'm not going to let you off for free. Quick update, not on this one, but where are we on the Chesterbrook Culvert? Just a quick update there.
Yes, the Chesterbrook Culvert, we actually went out to advertise and we're out to bid right now. So we just finished up the question period for that project. We expect bids to be received on March 3rd. So we should be back before the board, hopefully at the March meeting, to hopefully have a contractor approval. And then we would be starting sometime late April, probably beginning of May.
All right. Before we move on, do we have any questions or comments from the public for Steve? All right. We will move on to the motion to consider an exemption request from Cup of Dreams Coffee and Tea pursuant to Ordinance 165-7, single-use plastics. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned earlier in the meeting, we adopted the single-use plastic ordinance, and ironically, we have our first appeal to that on your agenda tonight. So this business submitted an email to us asking exemption through October of this year. They are a specialty tea shop, and one of the drinks they serve is called a boba tea, and it requires a larger straw opening, and they have not been able to secure that through their vendors. And as a result, that would impact their business, so they're asking an exemption at least through October 1st of 2023.
All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any board comment?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I looked at the request. I thought it was actually a very well-written and well-reasoned request, and it was a moderate request. It wasn't asking for just a wholesale exemption. And I, appreciate the fact that they're trying to comply and that they're asking just for I think it was 8 months extension.
Any other board comment?
Yeah, I'm wondering if, I do appreciate that the straws are of a larger diameter than the normal straws, and I'm wondering if perhaps the business might be willing to come back to us in, 3 months or 4 months and give an update on that, because it does seem, the email from them said they'd only had like 1 month's notice, but, we have been publicizing the single-use plastic ordinance for a long time. Now, I am sympathetic to the fact that this is a specialized item, but I wondered if we could get an update from them rather than just doing a blanket extension for 8 months, maybe do an extension for 3 or 4 months, and then have them come back and let us know and give us an update on where things are so we can then decide how to proceed.
Do we have any other comment, or are you making a, okay, go ahead, Supervisor Rosicki.
Dr. Gussie, I read the, because I was one who was frightened by the exemptions, and except after the exemption, we got the exemption language down, and I think that this request, as my colleague Mark said, fits right within the ordinance. It's specialized, it's limited, it goes out. Yes, it does go out, and we could probably sort of even put more limitation on it, but it's limited to the ordinance time frame, which is October 2023. So after reading it and after looking at it, after looking at the ordinance, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it under these circumstances, and it has to do with straws. You're not asking for any kind of paper bag or anything else. It's quite limited in request, and fits the ordinance as I see it.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is the straw is a part of the bubble tea experience. I mean, if you've had this, like, that's part of the thing. So I understand why they're asking, and I'm inclined to also would approve it. To Bhaskar's, or Supervisor Bhaskar's point, I mean, I'm not opposed to asking them to come back in 4 months and give us a quick update, but I would be inclined to grant exactly the request they're submitted, because it's totally reasonable.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you there too. I mean, our goal of this ordinance was not to punish businesses, and I think that we can be flexible during this time as the, businesses adjust. So it sounds like do we have any other board comments?
Yes. I wholeheartedly support the exemption that's been requested. I think as we get closer to the date that it goes into full effect, we're going to be receiving many more requests for exemptions, and maybe not from the businesses, but maybe from the residents of the township as well. One thing I can attest to is I use Instacart all the time to shop for and deliver groceries to me. So in their attempts to try to adapt, sometimes I get everything. I'll get 12 bags, paper bags, and they're double bagged for the heavy stuff. So then I'm getting a lot of the paper bags that we do recycle. Sometimes they've sent it in the plastic bags, or sometimes they have to use that. But more than anything, the way I get the groceries are in reusable bags that are very thick. They're already made out of plastic, as well as petroleum products. And I am drowning in reusable bags because they send them all the time. And so I think other people who use grocery delivery service, they might need it. It's hard to bring home the heavy stuff yourself, or if you're time limited, or you don't want to go out because of health reasons or COVID. I think we're going to start seeing this more and more. So I just want to bring that up, that we're going to get more feedback as it comes. But this is one of the reasons why I voted against the plastics ordinance.
All right, do we have any public comment? Come on up and state your name and address.
My name is Margaret Van Arsen. I hadn't read the proposal for it in detail, but I do know that bamboo straws are now available. I don't know whether they are available here in this area, but I've used them in Southeast Asia, and I've brought them home, and so they are available. So that might sort of help people think in those terms, or as alternatives. That's all.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? All right, we will move to the vote. All in favor?
Actually,
one more comment.
Can I offer an amendment? The amendment is, instead of, and again, we have to figure out the right wording, because I don't necessarily, come up with complete sentences on the fly. But how about if we amend the motion to allow it through October 1st, 2023, subject to getting an update from the business at our July meeting on what the status is of their attempts to procure non-plastic straws.
So do you have a motion to make an amendment? Do we have a
Yes, I'm
second?
making a motion to make to amend the motion.
Do we have a second on that amendment? All right, it sounds like we don't have a second. So I think we'll leave it as is and vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, the motion carries. We will move to the motion to reappoint Renee Hoffman, Robert Haitha, Danielle Jalbout, Mark Werther, and Peter Zimmerman to the Uniform Construction Code Board of Appeals. Ms. McPherson.
Yep, I think the motion is, as you stated, the appeals board meets very infrequently. They're kind of scheduled as needed, but if there's an appeal request from the Uniform Construction Code, they will hear those requests.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second? Sorry. Do we have the motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments? Any comments from the public? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we move to a motion to approve letter of support for East Whiteland's application to the U.S. Department of Transportation's Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity Discretionary Grant Program. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The intro on the resolution is pretty clear, but in terms of detail, this is our municipal neighbor. They're applying for this federal grant for their Route 30 corridor vehicular and pedestrian upgrades. To reduce crashes and also make it more pedestrian friendly, improving lanes, traffic signals, and other improvements. As part of their application, they are required to have local municipalities support their grant application, so they've requested us as well as other surrounding municipalities to offer letters of support. I think it would be prudent for us to support the application. It's a great application and we're a good neighbor. So with that, I hope you guys will approve us to sign the letter.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment?
Yeah, I would like to say that I did read the original request that went from East Whiteland, as well as I think there was something from the Planning Commission. I thought it was well thought out, and as someone who once upon a time used to use that route quite regularly, I think the improvements are needed. So I really feel strongly that we should write the letter in support of the request.
Thank you. Do we have any other board comment? Any public comment? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-9, amending the 2023 Township Fee Schedule. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tonight's request comes from my staff member, Hillary Mallory, who received some feedback on some of our costs in our fee schedule, specifically our court rentals, tennis specifically on this. So we've revised that down after Hillary was able to review it, along with some other neighboring municipalities. So we're recommending approval.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We didn't discuss this in Parks and Rec board at all about the need to increase the fees. I suppose they're being increased rather than reduced. So I think that's something that maybe we should have discussed before it came here so that we would understand the reasons for this. In looking at these highlighted changes, I did look further down the schedule of fees, and I just want to say this to the residents and non-residents who would use this. When I got to the cost for winter rec, as well as day camp, I was shocked at what the fees were changed to this year. I apologize for not seeing this when it went through, I suppose in January, but changing, the winter rec program historically was $25 flat fee, and about 8 weeks of half a day, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. of being able to drop your kids off and go do your shopping or whatever on Saturday mornings, and then pick them up. But now the price has been raised to $40 per week, which means that previously, so this last winter rec, residents paid $25 for all winter, 8 weeks, and coming up at the end of this year when we start with the 2023 winter rec program, it's going to be $320 for 8 weeks of winter rec. To me, that signals the death of the winter rec program. I don't know anybody who's going to pay that much for winter rec. Before, it was such a great benefit that the township provided to families. And I can't see how anybody's going to go along with it now. And the price for non-residents is the same as residents, $40 a week. So being a resident doesn't matter. You're not going to get any break. I'd like to see this board come back and look at this issue again. I don't think the township should be trying to compete with private businesses or other private sources that offer winter, like a winter rec or a day camp. You know, this is supposed to be something that we do as a benefit to our residents. We shouldn't be using it to, I know Joe DeRocca told me this was to break even. Still, there's a lot of things we provide access to that people don't have to pay, especially for. So the day camp, another thing with the winter rec is often it's closed on Saturday. Residents or anybody who's participating gets a message a day or two, sometimes the day of, that winter rec is closed for that weekend because the school couldn't be plowed, the parking lot to allow anybody to get in there to drop off their kids. Or a kid might be sick, so how are we going to refund money for weeks not used, whether it's not used by the parent or whether it's inaccessible for a township reason? So I think that there's bigger challenges that are created in here. I'll be fine with the tennis courts, I suppose. Like I said, we didn't get to discuss it or the need for change fees at Parks and Rec Board. And we didn't discuss any part of increased fees for winter rec or day camp either. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'll note that the changes that you talked about, we have previously voted on. So for tonight, just to remind the other supervisors, this is specific to the courts. So if the park board wants to discuss, other future changes to the fee, that's an option for a future vote for our board. Do we have any other board comments?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Mr. Rocco, just so that people know, with regard to the tennis courts, what's the change in rate?
I think we had it up at 75 an hour, if I'm remembering correctly, and we're coming down to 45 for resident, 55 for non-resident.
Okay, thank you.
And Joe, that's for if somebody wants to reserve ahead of time, so they're assured that they have that court then. If anybody walks up to, or you just happen to be around and you walk up to a court and it's not being used, you can use it. And you don't have to pay for it. It's pretty, I just wanted to clarify that. So
correct.
In other words, it's not on a must reserve basis. Reserve protects your time, basically, but you can use it if you just walk up and have an open court.
Madam Chair, just to follow up on Supervisor Wysocki's point, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is something that's generally going to be used by people who are giving lessons and they have a set time and they need a set time to be able to have people come.
Exactly, leagues, lessons, that type of thing, where you're going to be required, you want a certain day, a certain time. That's who reserves these. Or, again, some people have regular, like a Thursday tennis match that they play. This would be for them. The guarantee is, Supervisor Wysocki said, to guarantee their spot on that particular court.
And Joe, what was the rate in 2022? What did we charge last year?
Don't have it in front of me.
Isn't that what you just said was 75?
No, that was in the January approval. I want to say it was probably in the $25 to $30 range.
Okay, I'd be curious. Yeah, okay, thank you. I would agree with Supervisor Humble's view that I would ask Park and Rec Board to take a look at what we're charging and come up with a recommendation here. So I have the same reaction you had.
All right, any other board comments? Any public comments? All right, hearing none, this one is a roll call vote. Supervisor Miller?
Aye.
Supervisor Humble?
Aye.
Supervisor Wysocki?
No, this is to table, right?
No, we're just voting.
Oh, we're just voting? Okay, yes, yay, aye.
Supervisor Freed?
Aye.
Supervisor Basker?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The motion carries. Next, we will move to the motion to approve the termination agreement between LTF Real Estate Company, Inc., Children's Learning Center, and Tredyffrin Township. Mr. McKenna.
Thank you, Chairman Gussie. Some time ago, back in 2015, the Lifetime Fitness site was approved for its land development. As part of that development, there was a second parcel, smaller parcel, where it was proposed to have a private school associated with the Lifetime Fitness. That never came to pass, and in fact, they've come back seeking different uses. At that time, the township recorded their land development agreements, and because they're trying to now essentially secure some financing, it keeps showing up on their title search, and so they have asked us to essentially record and confirm that the development agreement has been complied with and there's nothing more to be done, particularly as it relates to that site. Counsel for Lifetime and the property owner, Deb Shilsky, drafted the agreement in front of you, reviewed it, it's pretty benign. I confirmed with staff there was nothing left related to that development agreement. So we're asking, and council is here tonight if you have any questions, but we're asking for you to approve the quick, straight to the point agreement so that they can record it and clear up their title report.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment?
Just a minor correction that we should make. I must have maybe fallen asleep or something like that because the agreement suggests that we might be in Montgomery County, and last I heard we were still in Chester County, so might be worth correcting that.
So is that the notary page? Right, so when the notary goes to actually sign the page, he or she will correct that, but we can absolutely make sure. If Mr. Martin happens to sign in Montgomery County, it actually will be effective. It all depends upon where it is signed. But I do appreciate that, and I will give Deb Shilsky a hard time when I talk to her next.
Thank you.
All right, any other board questions or comments? Do we have any public comments? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to adopt the 2022 Subdivision and Land Development Activities Report as required by the municipality's planning code. Ms. McPherson.
Yes, the motion is as you described. Every year we create a report as required by the MPC that lists all of the applications that the Planning Commission had heard for that year or previous year. So this is the 2022 report.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to execute a letter of support for Valley Creek Restoration Partnership grant application to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. Mr. Burgo.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this application, it's actually a letter of request from the board to sign to support this application. The Valley Creek chapter of Trout Unlimited is submitting for a $235,000 grant application. This is kind of one project that we currently have on our stormwater capital plan for Krabby Creek for the stormwater infiltration trenches. It's one of many that have either been done or are in the process of being designed and for the future. The group already had obtained funding from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection's Growing Greener program, a private Marshall grant, as well as a more recent grant from the Chester County ARPA funding. So this additional grant is for another $200,000 plus. It will help them do another project, hopefully, fully on one of the township streets. We have and we will continue to partner with the group. We've been doing these infiltration trench projects in this Krabby Creek watershed for a number of years. There's 22 different outfalls throughout the watershed that receive residential and street runoff going into Krabby Creek. One of the key things, besides the flooding reductions that this grant will support, it also will help them in their efforts to try to reintroduce brown brook trout into the upper reaches of Krabby Creek. So that's one of the big things this National Fish and Wildlife application will help support.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to execute a letter of support for Open Land Conservancy grant application to the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. Mr. Burgo.
Madam Chair and members of the board, another letter of support request, this one being done by the Open Lands Conservancy. They are working on a project in their George Lorimore Preserve, and they're looking to take out an existing small inline pond along a tributary to Valley Creek and do some stream restoration work. So this grant that they are seeking will help support that effort in their preserve.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? All right, we have a hand raised. Ms. Clark.
Actually, Mr. Clark here. Just wanted to thank the board for their considering this and for hopefully approving this letter of support. Steve explained the situation very well. This will help improve the health of Valley Creek, which is, as we know, an exceptionally designated exceptional value, kind of the heart of the western part of the township. And this is a very large and significant project that we've been working on for 3 years, and it's about to come to fruition thanks to support from many people, including township staff and the board here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Do we have any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we move to a motion to approve purchase of backup device for IT services. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The IT department is seeking approval to purchase an additional, we need a larger backup for our on-site backup due to just, again, more information needed to be stored from various departments across the township. So happy to answer any questions. This is in the budget. Cost is $23,681.33.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment?
Yes, I would like to say that I asked Mr. Giristante for the details of what exactly was being procured, and I reviewed that, and it's entirely appropriate, so I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. Any other board comment? Any public comment? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we move to the motion to approve capital purchase of a building access system. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. IT department is looking to update the building access system that we have. It's currently 8 years old, I believe. there's been no updates in software, and we have a lot of issues in terms of anytime a door goes down, replacing parts, et cetera. So they're looking for a more appropriate system that is more technologically advanced. And so the quote is for $41,000. It is in the budget. We do expect to be able to use a risk control grant from Divot to offset the purchase price. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have all right. Any board comment?
Again, I had a chance to review this, although not in so much detail because a lot of this is more services, but I certainly feel that this is an appropriate purchase.
Thank you. Any other board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve change order 1 for Public Works renovation project. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We are in the middle of renovating the Public Works building due to the expansion of our sewer department, and as part of that renovation, we have the locker room facilities. We were hoping that we wouldn't have to renovate as much as we ended up needing to. As we started getting through demo, things are just falling apart due to the age of the building, and so that led to just short of a $45,000 change order, to which will essentially redo the bathrooms in the locker room. So happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve proposal for Public Works garage roof replacement. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. In the 2023 budget, we have $500,000 to redo some of the roofs in Public Works. We looked at the 3 buildings that need a new roof, one being the main garage. We have garage number 2, which was in worse condition, and then our salt bin. At this point, we're requesting to replace the roof on garage number 2 and the salt shed at a cost of $453,636. We're able to utilize a co-op program similar to that of CoStars for this procurement, which saves us money. And at this time, we're going to defer the main Public Works garage until another year. But the garage number 2 and the salt bin have a lot of holes, leaking pretty bad. This will replace all of the insulation that has a ton of mold in it, and just fix the problems we're having. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve proposal for the purchase of lockers for Public Works renovation project. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This item is included in the project budget. The cost is $63,342. Again, these are the replacing of the lockers that we obviously demoed. We're actually going to be able to add lockers to the locker room because of the size, and actually they'll be just better, heavier duty than what we had in place before. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next, we move to a discussion on feasibility study for bike park at Mill Road Park. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. At our meeting last month, the board had requested staff go to couple of vendors and seek proposals for a feasibility study about bike park, pump track, specifically at Mill Road. My staff member, Hillary Mallory, went out to 3 different vendors, Simone Collins, who we're very familiar with, Panoni, and Glacken Thomas Panzik. They declined to give us a proposal. They just are at capacity with what they're doing. So we have a proposal from Simone and Panoni. They're both in the same range, a little under $9,000. And so we wanted to bring that back to the board, to start the discussion on what the next steps would be in this process.
Thank you. And I know that the feasibility study, it's not in our budget for this year, but I do know that the group of excited kids and adults have already started fundraising to cover this study. I think they were close to $4,000 the last time I looked, in less than 24 hours. So I think if the fundraising goes well, we could bring this at an upcoming meeting, potentially for a vote. Do we have any board comments on the feasibility study?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is they're at $33,770 in like 24 hours. So they're doing an extraordinary job raising the money, and they're excited about it. And I would encourage us to both share some of the feasibility study information with the group that I think ultimately is going to pay for it, so they know what the study's about. And then hopefully we can bring it back next month when we have the money to get the thing kicked off. It's exciting, and I think it's great to see the enthusiasm.
Yeah. Any other board comments?
Yeah, I think the enthusiasm of the kids and the residents was infectious, as evidenced by the fundraising. I have promised Mr. Zadrozny, who was here earlier this evening, but I don't see him now, that I would walk the site with him and hope to do that before it comes up. My only concern at this point is I would rather see us do 2 things well than to execute 5 things shoddily. And I know that the township staff is sort of running pretty much at full capacity. So that is my concern. I don't think that should affect the feasibility study, but this is something that I will be looking at as we go forward, because ultimately, if the park is being built, if the track is being built on our park, even if the funding is coming from somewhere, even if the engineering is coming from somewhere, and even if engineering management is coming from somewhere, ultimately township staff does have to have some sort of overall oversight to the project. And I just want to make sure that we don't sort of stretch our staff to breaking point. But that said, the plan does have my support. I do want to walk the site and sort of look it over for myself, and I think it's a great idea overall. It's just, we need to make sure that we execute it properly.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Any public comment?
I have a question. So while the item on the agenda is a motion to accept proposal for feasibility study for bike park at Mill Road Park.
It's a discussion.
Discussion. It's a discussion.
Oh, mine says motion. Mine says motion to accept proposal. How is that? Look.
Go ahead, sorry.
All right.
Mine says motion to approve. It doesn't say discussion.
So my name is Dom. I live in Chesterbrook, and I am kind of forwarding this project. I just want to let you guys know we have raised very, very close to $4,000 in less than 24 hours. We put it up at around 9 o'clock last night, and donations are still coming in. My foundation already made a donation and will probably be making another one pretty soon, and it's been posted a lot of other places, like the mountain bike team has recently posted it, and the funding will be here pretty shortly. We do kind of want to get this pretty quick because there's an Act 13 grant for 85% of the total cost, but the deadline for that is, I think, May, I'm pretty sure. So we do want to get that as soon as possible so we can get the application in for that grant.
When would that grant
Thank
have to be submitted then?
I'm sorry?
When does the grant have to be submitted?
May
May 31st.
May 31st.
And what do you need, Madam Chair? What do you need from us?
So I could jump in here. So I know we've talked, or you and I have talked about, we can't apply for that grant till you do the feasibility study and we have a project to apply for. I know we're all, and that's part of the challenge, right? This has to happen first. This is the first step in that process. So we're not going to make that round for May. I mean, and it's just not feasible, for lack of a better term. But this is a part when it's a municipal project, it becomes more cumbersome. But we're on the right trajectory. None of this was budgeted, none of this was planned for, but the board is making some great strides here. You guys are raising the funds. I think this is going to happen. It's just a question of timing, but I just wanted to make sure we were clear that, I know everyone wants to apply for it, but we have to have an approved project from you to be able to do that, and that won't happen in time for the application process.
Well, the feasibility study, as I understand, is a 60-day time period till we get that back, right?
From date of execution, yeah, it's 30 to 60 to 90 days is what, yeah, in that ballpark.
So that's February, March, April. We still got, we can.
Please come up to, just people at home can't hear you, so please come up to the microphone.
Okay. Arthur Zidraz here representing the Civics Association. I've been working with Dom and the team here. I've looked at some of the grant applications on the Act 13. There's a lot of material we could be getting together. Certainly the feasibility study is going to give us a lot of the key materials. The concern is if we don't push for that May deadline, we fall a whole year away from the next cycle in that grant cycle. There's other funding opportunities, but they're not as large and not as potentially valuable that could have us with this project actually up for the kids by spring of 2024. Yeah.
So are you pulling together the information for the application? Or is that something we're doing on our end?
I've already gotten actual grant applications that have been submitted and approved under the Act 13 for pump bike track. So I have a template of what they look like that can help us get moving on this, yes.
I guess I'm wondering, I understand we have to wait for and we're not going to take any action tonight, but we could maybe consider something for the agenda at the next meeting, which is, figure out exactly what either your group needs to do or the township needs to do or what we're going to do together, putting aside the feasibility study, and get all the other stuff together. So once the feasibility study comes in, assuming it can get in on time, that we're ready to put the package together and get it submitted.
Right.
We haven't, so I don't have a project. I don't have a vote from a board yet. I don't have a project cost. I have no commitment other than a discussion at this point, so I can't put together an application, have staff put that together. I don't have anything to put together yet. That's what I'm saying. I need authorization. I need commitment and financial commitment to put that application in, that we're going to support it and fund it. We know how much the project's going to be.
No, I understand that. I'm saying not tonight.
It's premature.
But it's May 31st. So sometime between the next meeting and May 31st, we can.
May 31st is when we would need to have the entire package submitted.
I understand that.
Yeah. So if we're waiting 30 to 60 days for the feasibility study, that's going to be key before we can start getting the bulk of it together. I'm doing research, but I can't start putting words on the document until we've got that feasibility study.
Well, then you're making Mr. Martin's case for him. Mr. Martin, I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that we can go on a parallel track, and it sounds like what Mr. Martin's saying and what you're now saying is that we can't go on a parallel track. We have to wait till we have the feasibility study to start putting things together.
Yeah, I think that this is the reason, this is an important next step. It's forward progress, there's momentum, we recognize your enthusiasm, and we're excited by that too. So the key next step is the feasibility study. And, if that ends up being able to go quick enough that we can do the application, then, we'll get to that. But we have to, as a municipality, we have to go through the steps.
Yeah.
So this is the next step.
Yeah, okay.
I can let you know, like, we do very much support this proposed project, like Mr. Martin said, how it looks like it's going to happen, it's on the right trajectory. I can tell you personally, I donated to the GoFundMe for this, and I know that Mr. Miller did too. So I just don't want you to go away like feeling denied or shot down or whatever. We're trying to work with you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was in the meeting next door, so I kind of missed the prelude. So you're proposing to wait another month before you can get started on the feasibility study?
Yeah, what we're proposing, what I think we're saying we're going to do is we're going to wait until you have the money to pay. Well, there's no budget for the feasibility study. So it's when we have the money, we will then authorize going forward with the feasibility study. That's where we are. That's why the discussion was, is there some way to get the application that your group could, or whatever, our group could get the application put together, at least in a rough draft form, so that you essentially attach the feasibility study to it, and that would be able to be submitted. Mr. Martin's point is that's very, very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Or impossible. Yeah, it's missing so many pieces, and I guess I'm hearing the same from you.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, you're in the bureaucratic world. I hate to say it.
No,
that's just.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we had the money in 2 weeks, we would still have to wait till the next board meeting.
That's just the world we're in here. I hate to say it.
All right.
Well, can we? I mean, I asked, could we?
I feel like there have been things that we have voted on after we've done retroactively.
There is. Typically,
I think we'll need to talk offline to
typically, we do that when there's an emergency and when the vote can't wait between meetings. The other issue is you have two proposals. So you have to actually choose which one it is you're going to go with. So I think it's twofold from what I'm hearing from the board. It's not only the money, but it's which proposal that would be done. And it doesn't sound like you're going to do that tonight.
No, but I don't think we're able to, in a position to do all that tonight. I hate to say it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
No, thanks. But I don't think that. I mean, I look at you, but I don't think we're in a position to even pick a proposal tonight. Do you think that?
No, I think we need to discuss the proposal with the group, and there's more to be done for that too.
Yeah, I mean, you guys.
So there's not. Yeah, there's not a vote.
You guys need to see the proposals, and because they're different. There's differences to them besides just the number. So that's part of it. Also, we need to get that done.
All right. Any other public comment? All right, we will move to the motion to authorize staff to advertise and receive bids for the 2023 Super Pave program. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We're seeking approval from the board to put our 2023 paving project out to bid. We have our list pretty much together. We hope to have the bids back by the March meeting, with the work being completed by the beginning of the school year in September. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve the proposal from the lowest qualified bidder for the Berwyn Pump Station Force Main Replacement Project. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. It's a little deceiving the way that it's actually written with the Berwyn Pump Station force main. It's actually Easttown's force main that's being replaced. When it gets up to our driveway at our Lancaster Avenue pump station, it runs into our gravity line. We have like an 8-foot easement that goes up through there. Our gravity line is directly underneath the force main from Berwyn Pump Station that's in Easttown. Our sewer engineer, Brown and Caldwell, has been working with Arrow, who is the engineer for the Easttown Municipal Authority, to come up so we can replace our gravity line at the same time that they're replacing their force main that's basically in the same trench. We looked at everything. The lowest qualified bidder is going to be Uric. It was advertised on Penn Bid February 7th, 2023. They had 6 responsive bidders. You have the list. Tredyffrin's portion of this project is anticipated to be less than $300,000. So I'd like to put that in front of them. Any questions?
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment?
Actually, I have a question, which is, can you summarize the difference between HDP, I presume, is high-density polyethylene, and PVC from a technical point of view? What are the benefits of one versus another? Is there any difference in terms of longevity or ability to withstand corrosion or things like that?
Not really in longevity. They're basically looking at what would be easiest to install, and that's about it, really. Just easiest to install is what it comes down to. They're pretty much the same type of pipe. Our gravity line can be PVC, and their force main will be the HDPE.
And there's no problem with connecting one to the other in terms of getting a good seal?
Well, ours is a gravity line, and theirs is actually the force main. So theirs is under pressure, and ours isn't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Any public comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve change order 1 for air conditioner condensers for the library renovation project. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Not the start we necessarily wanted with the HVAC portion of the library renovations. When Hirschberg got on site, they started, just looking around, getting ready to rebalance. That was supposed to be the biggest portion of this, was to really rebalance the system at the library, because we've gotten complaints specifically about it's too cold in the winter, too hot in the summer, it's too humid, and so one of the things that they found was that we have 2 of these rooftop units. One was completely shut off and hasn't been working for quite some time. This was news to us on a staff level. Our former library director apparently knew about it, but never brought it to our attention. We've also taken up the issue with our architect and the mechanical engineer, because our question was, why wasn't this caught? And so we're working through that with them. But in the meantime, because of the timing and the fact that we need to get these units replaced before we can do the roof, here we are. We're not just replacing one unit, the one unit that wasn't working. We actually end up having to replace the second unit, because with the first, with the other unit being down, the other units had to work essentially 100% capacity for too long in his run through its useful life, essentially. And so we're requesting approval for change order 1. Cost is $89,423. We do have bond reserves for the library available to cover this cost.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment?
Joe, your last comment made me feel good. Thanks.
Do we have any other board comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve change order 2 for expansion tank bladder boiler autofill for the HVAC system for the library renovation project. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Same instance as Hirschberg got to work. They started tracking down some issues. This was one of them, the expansion tank, which helps regulate the pressure within the system. Essentially it needs to be replaced. That cost is $5,798.99. Same funding source will apply to this.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to authorize training requests related to CCERT, which is the Chester County Regional Emergency Response Team. Chief Beatty.
Thank you, Dr. Gussie. Just to clarify, the Chester County Regional Emergency Response Team is comprised of 27 municipalities, basically the northern towards the western portion of Chester County, in which Tredyffrin is a member of. The CCERT, the governing body, and their commission have been researching the implementation of a SWAT canine program for the team. The addition for the canine unit for SWAT would aid in many types of the incidents that the team responds to, not limited to high-risk warrant services, scene security, open area and woodland searches, tracking, article recovery, and not to mention a great ad for community events in the area. The CCRT, or CC Emergency Response Commission, would provide all the financial responsibility for the canine's training, the certification, updates, equipment, and the liability insurance. There would be no additional direct cost to Tredyffrin Township for the program. The only indirect cost, which I'm going to discuss further, is for the canine handler, his training. For this program to establish, we are requesting the utilization of Tredyffrin Township Police Corporal Eric Mioli as the canine handler. Corporal Mioli comes with his own initial training and expertise that he's developed over years, such that his training level has been able to reduce, will be a 14-week to 16-week training program down to 5 weeks. That's one of the reasons it was decided if we could use Corporal Mioli, be a 5-week certification to be the certified handler for the canine, which the team would own. Corporal Mioli has been working with police canine groups for over 8 years and has extensive knowledge and ability, and currently handles his own Dutch Shepherd, which the CCERC is willing or looking to purchase for a nominal fee, just to carry over for the purchase price to have it as an asset for that team. Once again, no impact to Tredyffrin Township for budgetary constraints there. The only issue we're going to have with us, and the reason we're asking for approval, is because of the training. We're at a point where there will be a minor impact for us for scheduling while for Corporal Mioli in the 5-week training program. We've looked at maybe we could have most of the shifts covered by our management of our scheduling programs. We might have the possibility of 5 to 7 overtime shifts that would have to be covered to allow him to get to this training certification. Once again, Captain Brown and Joe DeRocco will be continue to work with the solicitor as well as the Township's Labor Council on a memorandum of understanding, which will outline the responsibilities of both organizations. At this point, I'm respectfully requesting authorization to allocate Corporal Mioli and assign him to the training as mentioned, and to implement the proposal for the canine unit for the CCERT. Not only to provide this resource to the other agencies within Chester County, but more importantly to our own area of responsibility here in Tredyffrin Township. And I'm available for any questions. I also have Captain Brown, who is the Assistant Commander for the team here, if the board or public has any questions on the proposal.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? I promised my daughter I would ask a very important question, which is, what is the name of the dog?
The dog's name is Bear.
Pear. All right. She will be happy that I got that.
Bear is a 3-year-old Dutch Shepherd.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any other board comment?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to thank Captain Brown for all his efforts on the CCERT. I talked to a number of chiefs throughout the county, including some that are not in the CCERT that wish they were. It's considered the gold standard for the ERT programs, and thank you for your efforts on that.
Any other board comment or question? Any public comment or question? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a related motion, which is the motion to authorize Township Solicitor to work with staff on memorandum of understanding between Tredyffrin Township and the CCERT for the CCERT K-9 program. Chief Beatty.
Just a follow-up, I briefly discussed it, but part of the thing will be the nuances to have that agreement in place that protects Tredyffrin Township and the relationship that we have to have. So we're asking the board to get that moving along and get authorized township staff to work with the solicitor and the solicitor for the CCERT to develop that.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to authorize staff to advertise a public hearing on March 20th, 2023 to consider and possibly adopt Ordinance H.R. 465, authorizing a second amendment to a lease agreement between Tredyffrin Township and Woodland School Corporation. Mr. Draco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Late last year, the Woodland School approached the township about redoing their lease. Their previous lease essentially outlined that they were responsible for the maintenance of the lower ball fields, the lower fields at Stratford Park, as well as some responsibilities to the tennis courts. They no longer need the lower fields, and that was the reason for the request to revise the lease. We have no problem with it. One of the things that we have done in this new lease is we're asking for some type of compensation that the town, because we plan on adding wind screens to the tennis courts. And so they're going to share up to, I think, $2,500 of that cost with the township. So we're just asking to get the process moving forward, and with that, a public hearing on the new lease.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to consider and authorize advertisement of a public hearing on April 17th, 2023 for H.R. 466 to consider a zoning map amendment for 10 and 14 Leopard Road. Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I think Mr. Wysocki talked about this a little bit in his Planning Commission report. We have an application for that property address that's looking to consolidate some lots, existing lots, 5 into 2. And when we were looking at it with the applicant, right now it's currently split zoned between residential, portions of the commercial property are residential. So we thought it best to amend the zoning map at this time so that all of the commercial property is in the commercial zoning district and the residential will be in the residential. So we are requesting that the board authorized the advertisement and schedule the public hearing for April 17th.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment?
I would like to thank Aaron McPherson for this very thorough memorandum that you submitted to the Board of Supervisors explaining the zoning map change. It was very helpful. Thank you.
Any other board comments or questions? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to authorize a request for proposal for consultant for Historical Commission Strategic Preservation Plan. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam
Turn
Chair.
it off.
As Mr. Williams from the Historic Commission mentioned earlier, part of their Phase 1 strategic preservation plan is to engage a consultant to begin that process. They have a certified local government grant amount of $10,000 with a $7,500 match from the township. And this will give us the authorization to start that process and selection of a consultant. So we're requesting that approval tonight.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All right. Any board comment? Any public comment?
Thank you. Robert Williams, 226 West Valley Road, also Chair of the Historic Commission. This contract will be our first competitive bid for hiring professional help. And it comes at a time when, as I mentioned earlier, we haven't had any professional help to elevate our understanding of preservation work in more than a decade. I do want to thank Mr. Duraco, Ms. McPherson, and Mr. Emanuel for helping us prepare and raise the quality of our proposal. I do want to mention that one reason this is a very important work, 2 years ago, the State Historic Preservation Office did an informal evaluation of our current code and deemed that we were deficient in certain areas and would put our certified local government at risk. They're planning to review that more formally in 2024. So this is important and timely work to have this done. I will say we're going to also elevate all of our understandings of this important area. We've been basically dormant in this arena, a public policy arena, for more than 10 years. I think it's not just the commission, but the planning commission, supervisors, township. We're all going to learn from this, as well as the public. It won't be just municipality ordinances, but we're going to learn about public-private partnerships and other private means by which we can preserve our lands. And then lastly, I just want to say I will make sure that we get every dime of value out of this contract and make sure that we get the most for the township. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we move to the motion to authorize the capital purchase of an F600 dump truck for Public Works. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Staff is requesting approval to buy a 2023 Ford F600 to replace a 2008 F550. The truck will have an extended toolbox behind the cab to carry all our masonry tools in. The chassis would be purchased from Keystone Ford for $67,390, and the body with plow from Lancaster Truck Bodies for $55,989 for a total price of $123,379, which was included in the 2023 budget, and both dealers are in the Co-Stars program.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to authorize the capital purchase of a new trailer for Public Works. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Staff is requesting approval for a new tag-along trailer for transporting our larger equipment and supplies in Public Works. The current trailer is a 1988 interstate trailer that's starting to show a lot of rust on the frame and needs to be repaired or replaced. The new trailer would be purchased from Stevenson Equipment for $41,620 through the Co-Stars program. This purchase was included in the 2023 budget, and only by luck is there one currently in stock at their Philadelphia facility.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Any board comment?
Did you say 1988?
It's lasted pretty well.
Extraordinary.
But there's not much more fixing it.
Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to authorize the purchase of a new sewer right-of-way unit. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Staff is requesting the Board of Supervisors approval for a new right-of-way unit, which is used to clear and clear blockages in our sanitary sewer lines that aren't accessible with our jet truck. The current unit is a 2001, which is on wheels and very hard to maneuver off-road, and the new one will have tracks. We'd like to purchase this from Golden Equipment for $72,549 under the Co-Stars program. The unit we're looking at and recommending is actually their demo unit, which comes with the same warranty as the new one, and the new one would cost $87,770. The unit would have all the extra nozzles and everything we need on it. They offer a trailer. We don't really need to buy the trailer. We have one. The purchase price was included in the 2023 budget.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to authorize an emergency sewer repair on Avon Road. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. On January 30th, Township was advised of a sanitary sewer backup on Avon Road. We traced the problem. It was actually all the way down on Lancaster Avenue in front of the Devon Square Shopping Center, where we found a broken and collapsed sanitary sewer line. We set up a bypass. We called in P.J. Riley for the repairs. I listed pretty much all of the services that we used. We were there for a straight 48 hours until we got the sewer line back up and repaired. Total estimate for the project is $58,798.14.
Thank you, and thank you for you and your team on that. That was really hard work. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to authorize the purchase of furniture for the Public Works renovation project. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This will be the last time you'll hear from me tonight. We're seeking authorization and approval of the proposal from Kafco, which is the same furniture company we used the admin renovations. We do need to give the Public Works staff furniture. So the cost is $70,748.41, and that is included in the project budget.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve the capital purchase of 3 vehicles for the police department. Chief Beatty.
Madam Chair, the Police Department is seeking approval to implement the purchase orders for the 2023 police vehicles. These were previously discussed in the 2023 capital expense for the Police Department for vehicles that started last summer and went through December. Look at the purchase orders will be for 2 hybrid Ford Explorers and then 1 sedan, a Dodge Charger. The Dodge has a V6 engine, and then the appropriate upfitting that will happen. So the total purchase order price will be approximately $129,000. Upfitting costs about $46,000 total to utilize the authorized capital of $175,000 under line item 47-210. So looking for approval to institute those purchase orders and start this process, which now time frame is taking 9 to 10 months, if not more, to get vehicles in.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment?
Yes, Dr. Gussie and Chief Beatty. So, we've talked for a long time over the last year or two about looking into electric police vehicles as and we've talked about the township moving into clean energy. I would just like to understand what it is that keeps us from considering electric vehicles, because as far as I know, there are other police departments using them, and they've been using them for years, and they've demonstrated their value and their cost effectiveness. So if someone can explain to me why that is the case, I would like to understand it.
Chief, I'm happy to handle this. So one of the things that we've put it in the 5-year capital plan to start looking into this. It just needs more time in terms of making sure we have the right utility for both the police department, because we also want to implement the same type of strategy for the administration vehicles as well. And so we're going to work closely with the chief just to make sure we have, again, right size vehicles, but then also the time to research and develop the necessary place to have our charging stations, et cetera. And so, but it is in the budget, in the plan, I should say.
I agree. We've wholeheartedly, we test drove, we've researched and dealt with other departments around the country, and we're on top of it. We're looking and watching it, and as soon as we have the ability and the desire from the board in that direction to make that expense, because they are coming in at a higher price, but they're also savings that we have to look at in costs. A lot of the things we're hearing about, there are some cost savings as it goes down with oil changes, transmissions, and stuff like that. So we're definitely looking at it, and we'll take direction when the board, and this is obviously it's going to have to happen as we get into the summertime. We start looking for 2024 budget. It's something we'll have to work together and decide how we're going to do as an entity between the township and the police department, what we can institute. But we're not against it, and we drove them, and the ones we drove were very impressive.
Thank you, Chief. So Mr. DeRocco, are you saying that we didn't budget for it in 2023?
Correct.
But it is this is the first time it was in our budget for our 5-year plan. Can you remind me which year we have it under, which is?
We put it out in 2027. Again, we were looking at just giving ourselves a little bit more time to figure out what specifically vehicle we want to target, and then the full-blown, what the full program is going to look like in cost.
So basically it was in the 5th year of the 5-year plan.
Got to start somewhere, right?
Okay, I think we can do better than that. And I, for one, am not satisfied with the progress we're making. I would like to see some dates on it, because if you don't put a date on it, the longest journey is the one that's never begun. So let's take that first step by putting a date on when we're going to see a plan, a specific plan, not just something that's 5 years out as to something that's going to happen. So I'd like to request that you come back to us with a date for when there's going to be a date.
Yeah, we'll work with the police department, Chief Beatty and his staff, and come up with a comprehensive plan, and we'll report back to the board.
Yep. And Dr. Gussie, if there's an issue with the Finance Committee, I would like to speak up and say make it happen.
This isn't something we've discussed. Yeah, it hasn't come in front of us, so.
Well, okay, so right now the ball is in Mr. DeRocco's court, and then it's going to come to the Finance Committee, and then it's going to come to the budget. Is that the process? Okay, thank you.
Yep. Supervisor Basker, I think what I am hearing is we're going to propose putting at least our first electric vehicle or a plan in the 2024 budget. Is that sort of what we're talking about right now?
Originally, we had planned on having the rollout of our first electric vehicles in the fleet in 2027, but the feedback that I just received tonight was speed that up, come up with your plan quicker, and potentially try to implement next year.
All right, so these are all great. This is great discussion. We do have a motion in front of us. Do we have any other comments on the motion in front of us? From the board? From the public? All right, so let's go ahead and vote on this. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we have a motion to authorize proposal from Brown and Caldwell for Jeffrey Lane area stormwater improvements. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. During our inspections of our sanitary pipe and our storm pipe for our paving program last year, we found that the storm pipe that comes down West Valley Road from Upper Wheatley down to Radcliffe, and then it goes down through the yards and driveways all the way down to Jeffrey, is failing severely. We've gone out there 3 or 4 times already just to try to keep the people's driveways open with making some emergency repairs. The system is actually 2 systems that run down through there. It's not just one storm pipe system, it's 2. We contacted Brown and Caldwell. We got a proposal from them for $84,200 just to do the engineering to try to figure out the best way in order to control the stormwater down through there and replace the pipes, because it's more than just to replace the pipes in kind. So we actually have to get it engineered out and figure out a way to take some of the momentum out of that water as it's coming down that hill. So be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question, and it's based on this general location. I know that the township already started doing work for stormwater remediation on the eastern side of Upper Weedley Road, but the residents who are on the western side of Upper Weedley Road also have severe difficulties with the stormwater. I think, as Pugh Road goes and joins Jeffrey Lane, they're both coming off of West Valley, so I don't know if everybody's got the picture that we have here, or if you look on this one, the one from Google Earth, is almost easier to see because we have so this is West Valley. This is the way on Pugh Road, like if you're going to New Eagle. And then this is Jeffrey Lane, and we've got this green spot outlined. When straight up above it is where all the stormwaters are coming from Saunders Road and washing out Upper Weedley on the west side. It's a tremendous dip that goes from West Valley on Upper Weedley, maybe a 20-foot rise to where it kind of bottoms out. Mm-hmm. And those residents have been talking to me for 2 years at least. I've gone out and looked at the site, and I think some of the problem water is coming from Upper Weedley, which is coming from Saunders. So I don't know if there's a way to tie that in to what we're doing here, but it seems like we're leaving out an important part of the flooding in that region.
What the problem we have is failing pipes. We're not really looking at the flooding issue, we're looking at the failing pipes, and it's actually restricting people to get it in and out of their property. So that's our major concern right now, is making it so people can get in and out of their properties.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Humble, I believe as part of this proposal, Brown and Caldwell is going to try to look at to see if there's any, it's only specifically for the West Valley portion here, but they're going to see if there's any solutions that we can implement that will reduce water coming downstream. But as Mr. Fitzgerald pointed out, this is it's not a simple infrastructure replacement, but we're looking at the infrastructure and trying to, the big part of this project is to try to move it away from the houses. Right now, the pipes run very close to the houses, and we're trying to move them the best that we can and again, solve this velocity issue that we have.
Okay. I know it's a huge remediation for that whole area. It is the side of a mountain, and we have natural streams running there. But I'm just, wanting to make sure we're being thorough. So thank you very much.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other board comments? Any public comment? All right, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we move to escrows. We have a motion to approve release 2 for Devon Preparatory School Athletic Field in the amount of $180,574.69. Balance remaining $536,613.44. I never do it right. Mr. Virgo.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the following amounts that were mentioned are recommended for release this evening for the Devon Prep School project. It's a turf field project. They're doing this baseball field converted over the turf, and they are building an additional building. The stormwater have been inspected, as well as a variety of other grading and site improvements. The amounts that are recommended this evening have been inspected and are recommended to the board this evening for release. If you have any questions, we can certainly answer.
All right, do we have a motion? So moved. Do we have a second? All right, any board comment? Any public comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve cash escrow agreement between Arcadia and Township. Mr. McKenna.
Thank you, Dr. Gussie. The item B and C are actually related to each other. The township is currently holding about $523,000 in 10% contingencies for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Arcadia projects. The only work that is left to be done, Phase 3 was already completely released. Phase 1 has some landscaping work. I think it's something like 31 shrubs or something to that effect, which the cost is about $16,000. In addition, the basin seeding that the developer did in the fall, for whatever reason, did not take. So we have asked them to reseed those basins to ensure that they're actually working properly. They have agreed to do so. They have asked us to release the contingencies and instead establish a cash escrow agreement, which is before you this evening, to which we have no objection. They have also delivered the $80,000 already to the township today. The only one discrepancy that I would note is that the total is slightly off in the agreement, so I would just ask that the board approve it as amended so that it matches up the release request that you're going to have in item C, which should be as follows. Phase 1 balance remaining should be $200,305.02. Phase 2 should be $323,644.62 for a total of $523,949.64. It's off by a factor of about $38,000. We're actually holding more than the counsel for the applicant has in the agreement. They have listed $485,687.55. Counsel for Arcadia is here, Allison Zaro. I spoke with her a minute ago. Allison, would you mind just verifying that you're okay with that change to the agreement?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Allison Zaro on behalf of Arcadia. We do agree to that change. Thank you, Mr.
So
President.
it's really a non-substance agreement, substantive change to the agreement, because the next item I'm going to ask you to do is to release all of the escrow that we're currently holding, whether it's $485,000 or $523,000, and thereby establish the cash escrow agreement. But we would like it to be amended so that the amounts match up. We'll change those pages and have it executed.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the cash escrow agreement as amended between Arcadia and Township?
So moved.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And now we move to the motion to approve the final release of the financial security for Phase 1 and 2 for Arcadia. Does that need to say as amended, or that's good?
No, so I believe the amounts are correct. Hopefully yours jives with mine, which is Phase 1, $200,305.02, and Phase 2, $323,644.62. That's that $523,000 total. So it would be asking the board to approve the final release in those amounts for Phases 1 and 2.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we move to new matters. Do we have any board member new matters tonight? Do we have any citizen new matters tonight?
Good evening again, Arthur Sidrosny, and I'll present myself in a new capacity because an hour or so ago at the Parks Foundation Board, I was accepted as the newest member of the Parks Foundation Board. So I have that title to add to my resume here as a citizen in Tredyffrin. And I bring you a couple of updates. As of 9:21 this evening, and I'm sure you'll appreciate just how these things go, Dom and his efforts have raised $5,392. But when I went back to the Park Foundation Board and reported to them the hesitancy of the Board of Supervisors to move forward until all the money was committed, they authorized $4,500 to the effort for the feasibility study. So the funding is there, the enthusiasm is there. I would hate that a 30-day delay would jeopardize the chance of getting this park built any sooner than is possible for these kids. So I would ask that you reconsider that and any other decisions you have to make about who the bidder would be. But certainly the funding is there and the enthusiasm is there. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, would we need to choose between two options tonight?
Yeah, I guess that's my question for Mr. McKenna. So can we approve to move forward with a feasibility study without choosing one tonight, or can we have, like, what do you recommend as different approaches here?
So you have a problem because the Sunshine Act, as recently amended in 2021, specifically addresses this contingency in section 712.1D. It talks about any business that arises during the meeting from a resident that's not specifically listed on the meeting agenda. You can take official action if it's a de minimis matter or you're going to refer it to staff, so long as it does not involve the expenditure of funds or the entering into of a contract. And your agenda did not address that. It was a discussion. It actually said motion. So the revised agenda that was published, I believe tonight, actually said discussion on.
Do we not have to do like a 7-day notice requirement to change stuff on the agenda? I mean,
There was a one initially. It was within the time frame. It was advertised and put out correctly.
Yeah, we can change the agenda up to 24 hours before the meeting, and then you can do it at the meeting, so long as there's a board vote and there's a reason for why it's done, the minutes are amended and things of that nature. But I do think you have a constraint with the Sunshine Act about awarding it based upon the agenda. I think perhaps, I'm thinking out loud, which is a bad way to do it, but there may be a way to ratify the action at next month's meeting, given that you're potentially trying to make the May meeting, the May submission deadline. We can probably talk about that offline. I'm not sure if the board has even really reviewed the proposals, but there's something we may be able to do behind the scenes, have a consensus to the board and ratify it in March so that you don't lose time.
So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. So what you're proposing is that we could authorize staff to work with this group to pick a proposal and get started, and then we would then ratify that at the March meeting? Is that what you're saying? Or what do you?
What I understand.
With no vote tonight is what you're saying.
Correct.
So
I would not recommend action of the proposal based upon the constraint of the Sunshine Act. What I would suggest is that we take a look after the meeting. If there's consensus of the board on a proposal or direction that you want to go, we can likely do that, and then you can ratify action hopefully at the March meeting once the board has had a chance to discuss it, on the theory that there is an emergency here, which is the grant deadline of, was it May 31st?
Yes.
Correct.
So it sounds like we will reach out and talk, because we need to discuss with them the different options. So we can, nothing we're voting on tonight, but we can move forward with, what we want to do in terms of choosing a proposal, and that will have to, we'll need to review it, you'll need to review it. And then if we come to a consensus,
correct,
then we can ratify it at the next meeting so that we don't get held up. But we will not, based on legal things, we will not vote tonight.
Right. In other words, even though there's not a vote tonight, as soon as this meeting ends, we're going to continue the discussion.
Understood and appreciate.
In compliance with the Sunshine Law.
Understood and appreciate. And again, my offer and willingness is there to work with whoever in the township is there to make this happen. Thank you.
And also very cool getting the donations. Great job.
Yeah, okay.
All right, do we have any other citizen new matters? Ms. Clark or Mr. Clark? It'll be a surprise.
This time it's Ms. Clark. Good evening, all. I had a question regarding the announcement early on in the meeting about the joint public meeting with East Township to discuss fire and EMS matters. Could you provide a little bit more background on who asked for this particular joint meeting? What's the purpose of it? Is there a quasi-agenda? What are the matters to be discussed? Thank you so much.
So this is, at a recent meeting, we voted, I think it was our last meeting, we voted on a Phase 1 study with a consultant that was shared with Easttown Township. And at this meeting, that consultant is going to present kind of his conclusion from that Phase 1 and next steps. And because it's a joint effort, we're having it a joint public meeting. And Mr. Martin or Mr. Director can probably give more details on agenda and things like that.
You've covered it. The agenda will be mostly the Phase 1 presentation and next steps, and of course, that could lead to other discussions related to that topic. So, but the agenda hasn't been put out yet. The main item agenda will be the Phase 1 study results.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other citizen new comments tonight? New matters tonight? All right. Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. That concludes our meeting, and our next Board of Supervisors meeting is March 20th. Thank you.